Hi, it's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and welcome back to my channel where I make a lot of cake and cookie decorating tutorials as well as give a lot of baking business tips. And today we are back for a good old-fashioned baking business tips video. But I wanted to talk about when you get to boss level. So maybe you're thinking of opening up an actual storefront and you're going to have employees, or maybe you're running an online store, but you're still going to be having employees working for you. So this is one of the things that I think is really, really important, and it often gets overlooked. I think when we think of opening up a bakery, or we have a really big passion for cake decorating or cookie decorating, we just think, I would love to dedicate my time to making cakes and cookies all day. But running a bakery isn't all about just cake decorating and cookie decorating and making your favorite pastries. There is a whole network of things that needs to happen, and if you're the baker and the storefront owner, then these are the things that are going to fall on your shoulders. And sometimes I've seen bakeries maybe not reach that level of success that they could because of mismanagement, or because being a boss is really different from being a talented baker. Not always do the two coincide. So let's get right into it. Number one, you can't be a solid employer if you've never been an employee. So sometimes I see this, and I see this more regularly now actually. I think just with the way that the economy is going and the way that social media has become one of the top careers that children actually want. So what I'm seeing is a lot of people want to jump from A to Z without doing any of the letters in between, meaning they want to be their own boss. Nothing wrong with being your own boss. I think having that level of autonomy is awesome, but I don't think you can be a boss before you've actually worked for someone else. This is because nobody understands what it's like to work for somebody more than somebody that's worked for somebody. Being able to follow tasks in a timely manner and understand not only how to complete those tasks, but also see what kind of tasks are a reasonable ask. If we don't know what a reasonable ask is as an employee, then how could we possibly know as an employer? It's really important that we're not overworking our staff, but we're also making sure to maintain shop order, of course. Even if you're not a naturally empathetic person, just having been in that same position is automatically going to give you a leg up. You're going to understand how you want your boss to have spoken to you in past, and then hopefully you'll be able to employ those same tactics that you really desired as an employee. As a previous employee as well, you'll know what type of scheduling and what type of organization you really appreciated and what maybe didn't really work out for you as well. Sometimes when we try to think just like a boss, we end up just thinking about what it is that is going to work for us personally. And being able to think about other people's needs is super, super important when you're running a business. And this is not specific to a baking business. This can be applied to literally any business and any type of leadership position. Being able to make decisions that actually account for other people's needs is super, super important. Number two, and we kind of briefly talked about this just now, but making sure that you have systems and protocols in place. Something that's a little bit different about running your own bakery is that obviously you're probably not a corporate entity right off of the bat. You probably don't have a lot of franchises. You are one shop, and probably one shop only for a little while until you get things actually going. So you don't have a big fancy HR department. You don't have somebody that you can direct to human resources to deal with issues. But you still need to be able to say to yourself, if my employees do have an issue either with me or with each other, what are my protocols going to be? That is something that I find happens in the workplace a lot. There can be some sort of issue that arises, and it can make the workplace very unpleasant if there aren't particular protocols. Or sometimes those issues just get swept under the rug and never actually get dealt with, again, which can make an unhappy work environment. Now, the likelihood that some sort of issue is going to happen between your employees, I think, is a lot smaller than the likelihood likelihood that something is going to happen with scheduling. Scheduling is a big one. I think this is one that many people struggle with because when you're running a bakery, you know, you really don't know how many people you're going to need to put on. I will say this though, I used to work at a bakery where we worked alone, and quite frankly, I think it's unsafe because it's not going to allow people to utilize the bathroom when they need to, and although it might seem like the economical choice, I think it's better to ensure that you're making sure that your staff is well taken care of, as well as the fact that if you're going to be hiring younger people, you want to make sure that there are safety in numbers, as well as just kind of lowering that anxiety for some people. It can be very stressful working in the service industry, and to do it all on your own is an added stress. So making sure that you're scheduling and you're netting so that you at least have more than one person on shift at once. And it doesn't really matter how you set up your scheduling, and over time you will figure it out as the bakery owner which shifts need more people, which ones need less, but the main thing is that you make sure you offer some sort of consistency for your employees. This can be tricky because of course you are not going to be able to necessarily say it's going to be super consistent business for this amount of time, but I really do think that prioritizing scheduling and making it so that it works with people's lives should be a priority. I know that I worked for one company where basically they had a policy that you had to work at least one weekend shift, you had to work one other shift during the week, and you also had to be on call for at least 2 or 3 shifts a month. So you can put whatever protocols you want in place that are going to work for you, but I think that the biggest thing is communicating these protocols prior to any onboarding of staff. And you also have to make sure that you come up with a system where all your bases are covered. Because, moving along to the next point, as the boss, you have to make sure that you're ready to pick up the pieces of any situation. And this is especially difficult for bakeries that are just starting out. So it doesn't necessarily have to be you that is the entity that is going to fix something or be there for something. It could be a manager, but in the most likely event, it is going to be you. So when you're jumping headfirst into running this bakery, of course, you have to be the most available out of everybody on that schedule. If somebody calls in sick, it's more than likely going to be you that has to fill in. Running a bakery can be very lucrative and it is an amazing job, but I also think that there's good and bad with everything. And of course, in this regard, being a bakery owner means that you do have to fill in those gaps when nobody else can. Of course, nobody is going to fault you as the boss for exhausting every single possibility. However, I do think that once you realize there's nobody else to fill in, the expectation is that you're going to fill in. And I think what's really important as a boss is that you accept that very graciously. Number 4, being able to relinquish control. And I know that for someone like me, this would be very difficult. But one thing that I really appreciated about my bakery boss was she really let you do whatever you saw fit. Now, keep in mind, she wasn't actually a cake decorator herself, so she did kind of have to relinquish that control because we were the cake decorators. But I think that it's really important to take on the understanding that there are lots of ways to get to the same end goal. So, of course, we might see someone doing something a little bit strange, or not strange, but maybe a little less efficient. As the boss, we are welcome to show them how to do something more efficiently, but also be okay with the fact that maybe they're doing it their way, and if it still gets the job done, it still gets the job done. I think one of those buzzwords that I hear a lot is micromanaging, and this is a big complaint among many employees regarding their bosses. So I think it's really important to always holistically look at your business and see, are we getting to those end goals? Did I really need to say something about X, Y, or Z? Of course, if it's pertinent and you do need to say something because it's going to wreck an entire end goal, say something. But maybe just relinquish a little bit of that control if it's something that really isn't going to have that big of an effect on something, maybe in the there and now, but not in the holistic picture. The next one on the list, staying organized. The more organized you are, the better leadership you really can take. Because if you're super disorganized, it makes it a really uncomfortable situation for your employees, your customers, and for yourself. The more organized you are, whether it comes to custom orders, cupcake orders, pastry orders, any type of orders, it's going to be good if you have a paper trail that you can look back on just in case anything goes wrong. Staying organized also just helps keep the flow of the shop all together. Employees will know what it is that is expected of them, and they'll also know where to find things and what to do in case of what. Being organized kind of seems like a given, but I do think sometimes, especially with those who have creative minds, being organized can sometimes not be a priority. So it really is important that just as creative as you are, stay organized. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do the organization, but being able to delegate someone to set up those things so that they're in place and they remain organized is very important. Moving along, do as you say and say as you do. This is one of the big things that I think employees tend to complain about a lot. And we've all seen the videos of people complaining about their boss. FYI, never complain about your boss publicly. And if you are having an issue with your boss, then of course you need to just talk to them about it. But I will say that as someone who has been in leadership positions, the best thing that you can do is hold those same standards that you hold for everybody else to yourself as well. Now, I'm going to talk about something that's pretty specific and just kind of a little bit mundane, but if you expect all of the dishes to be cleaned by the end of whatever time and things need to be in XYZ places, don't go creating a mess purposefully and then leaving that for your employees to do. And it might seem like, but I pay them to do that job and I can do whatever jobs I would like to. I understand that to a point, especially if you're maybe running out of time and you literally just don't have time because you were working on a 6-tiered cake and you don't have time to do the dishes. But you can always just be humbled by that, apologize for leaving things a little bit messy, and show that you appreciate that they're going to be cleaning your dishes. As we know, in a mom and pop shop like bakery, everybody kind of does every single job. Of course, you have people that really do the customer service work, and then you have other people that just focus more on the cake decorating, but still something like dishes is usually a shared job among most staff. If that's the expectation for your staff, it really should be the expectation for yourself as well. This really isn't so much about getting the job done, it's about being a working team member, and if you're demonstrating the type of behavior that you would like to have at your shop, it really will make people want to do those things for you as well. And this is not to say that the boss doesn't have, obviously, privileges within the shop and they're going to be doing other things and making decisions that employees cannot make. But in terms of optics, whenever I've seen a superior do things that maybe their subordinates are working on or helping them out with that, it really just sets a great precedent and it really puts out a good work environment. Yes, you still have to do the jobs of the superior, but when you have that opportunity and you have that chance to just go ahead and do some of those other jobs and follow through on what your own expectations are of your employees, I think it really makes a great work environment. Next on the list, and I think this is really, again, tricky for those who are just a one-shop bakery and they're not a big franchise or corporate company, you need to be a boss, not a friend. And we hear this phrase so often, we're like family here, we're not like a company, and honestly, I think that there are a lot of issues with that statement because sometimes those lines can be blurred between when am I your friend and when am I your boss, when am I your friend and when am I your employee. It can be difficult, and also I think it leaves room for people to feel personal feelings of guilt. How many times have you ever been called into a shift and then you feel guilty because maybe you've said no so many times, so then you end up going in because you know that your employee will have to deal with X, Y, Z if you're not there. And I think it's fine on an employee level to kind of do those things for each other, but when it's your superior making you possibly feel guilted because you're their friend or you're supposed to have a deeper relationship than that of a superior and a subordinate, then it can get really, really messy. It's important to draw super professional boundaries. Grabbing a coffee after work, I think something like that is totally fine, but I think that inviting people to separate social events that are outside of work, that have nothing to do with work, can really enter a gray territory. And I mean, you are the boss, you are the owner, you can choose to do whatever it is that you wish, but I think the strongest bosses that I have had in past really make sure to make that delineation. It really helps get rid of any issues of favoritism, and it also keeps those lines really, really clear and the expectations clear. And there's no emotion then if anything were to go wrong or if there are any workplace grievances. And the next one on the list, clear expectations. As many of you know, I work with children, and one of the things that I really, really emphasize is my expectations and having clear and consistent expectations every single time. You do not want your employees showing up late to work, gossiping in the workplace. All of these things should be nipped the minute that you onboard them. And this again goes into that whole thing about having processes and making sure that you have protocols. In the onboarding, really important to outline all the expectations for your shop. Now, of course, your expectations have to be well within reason, but I think things like showing up on time for a shift or being polite to customers, I mean, these are all things that should just regularly be part of the expectations. But more so than being clear about your expectations, it's about being consistent, and it's about being consistent across the board no matter what. Next on our list, show your appreciation. How many times do you hear on Reddit threads, online, just in person, talking to your own friends, that their boss makes them feel unappreciated? Now, how do we show appreciation? You could just say something like, wow, the cupcakes look great today, you did such a good job. Or I really appreciate that you're keeping those cake tools super organized. Or I recognize that you went above and beyond and did X, Y, Z. Sometimes when we have employees that continually go above and beyond, it can sometimes just seem like above and beyond is just average and normal. And then we don't end up showing that appreciation like we should. And it can make that person that's going above and beyond feel like maybe I shouldn't go above and beyond because it really doesn't make that much of a difference if I'm just average, because so-and-so is just doing their job, what minimally is expected of them, and they're receiving the same amount of praise or whatever. So it's really important that we do show our appreciation. And it doesn't always have to be monetary. That being said, I think obviously giving regular wage increases is really important. Showing appreciation for loyalty and longevity is also very important. These are the things that we hear time and time again that cause people to quit because they don't feel valued in these areas. And finally, not everyone is cut out to be the acting boss of the bakery that they own. Now, I see this a lot where people will open up their bakery and, like I said at the beginning of the video, they're very good at what they do, but managing things is just not their forte. So it's okay to hire somebody in a managerial position where they're able to act out the things that normally a boss would do. But of course, they're still receiving command from you and they're being delegated by you, but your staff's interactions are more so with this manager in the day-to-day. Being a bakery owner or business owner is very, very different than working in some corporation and being a superior. Because yes, your boss is still your boss and maybe they do sign your paychecks, but in other places, they're not necessarily taking money from their own pocket to pay you. So they can act a little bit differently. There's not so much on the line for them. They might be receiving pressure from their superiors, but even then, it's always a little bit of a different feel. Having a superior that directly pays your paycheck from essentially their pockets is a very different feeling. And this really comes down to knowing yourself. And I know a lot of people think, I don't have the money to invest in this. I don't have the money to pay somebody that could be a manager or a boss-like figure. But it really is important to have someone that's second in command, because if you don't, when will you ever rest? It takes a long while until a shop can really run itself, and having somebody in that manager-like position will really help you. It will help you to be more efficient, and it's also going to help you just make sure that you're not blurring those lines, because I really do think in a mom and pop situation, it is trickier. So if you're thinking about opening a baking business, or maybe you're already a shop owner and you just want to know, how can I make this a better experience overall for myself and for my employees? I hope that this video gave you some insights. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading weekly, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!